the Krusty Krab today.
Is Coach Kazama scamming? Absurd Coach Kazama? Tech and fraud? It looks like we need to clear some things up. My name is being mentioned quite often right now, almost like there's a bounty on my head.
Son, we're looking for the maniac.
Have you seen this man?
Oh, it's the maniac! Take him away! Take him away!
And before I get into any points in this video, I want to say a message directly to Novaseiken. You should be ashamed of yourself and your community. The amount of deplorable, disgusting, and racist comments that I've had to filter through in my messages and my YouTube comment section is ridiculous. I've had to stop looking through the filtered comments at this point for my own mental health because of your toxic community that encourages witch hunting and bullying. These comments are so bad, this video would get age restricted if I showed you what I had to filter. This is the community that you created, so give yourself a pat on the back for creating this community that hates others and hates the game, all while attempting to alienate creators that are genuinely trying to teach players to play the game. So since there's a lot of misinformation about me and my background, let me show you guys where this all began. The foundation of this channel was built on helping newer players understand basic and intermediate mechanics through the lens of Asuka. I wanted to help as many people as I could learn this complex game with the experience that I've picked up over time. Even today, I have a very recent guide on Asuka's combo structure, which you can find uploaded about a month ago. But as you can see, my first video was uploaded a year ago, showing you about how to counter wake-ups. This is a more general video, but again through the lens of Asuka. Then I made an all-in-one guide for Asuka, which helped a lot of players, and was kind of one of my first viral videos, quote unquote. From here, I've been uploading general guides like frame traps, ranked videos, wall pressure, common mistakes, top moves, an all-inclusive parry guide, an Oki guide, more common ranked mistakes, an updated guide for Season 2, and so on and so forth. I've been playing Tekken seriously since Tekken 6, but have played older series like Tekken 3 casually with my brother when I was younger. Asuka was my main motivation to continue playing and learning in Tekken 6, but I was still a beginner in every aspect of the game. After about 500 hours of Tekken 6, I moved on over to Tekken Tag 2. Tekken Tag 2 had significantly better netcode and allowed me to practice the game, and this is where I really started reaching my stride after a few thousand hours. I played a decent amount of Tekken 7, but was deep into my college studio classes to really lock in on it. So I put about 500 hours into this one and then I had to stop. And fast forward to Tekken 8, I've logged about 2,000 plus hours into the game and began coaching in the beginning of last year. The real question I have to ask, specifically to these YouTubers who hopped on the bandwagon of hate, is why would a scammer spend all of this time teaching you proper combo structure, multiple videos on Oki, wall pressure, frame traps, and the list goes on. Ultimately, being I have a growing variety of videos that you can watch, apply, and immediately improve as a player should be enough in its own right. Scammer would have no interest in making videos that genuinely help people play the game. But here's something a fraud definitely wouldn't have. They wouldn't have this, or 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 this, and 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 this. And these are just my recent messages, but I have hundreds of messages like this over the 2 years that I've been coaching, and they're all thriving. So the people who want to discredit me or say that I'm some sort of fake coach, you're living in delusion. Now let's talk about his very first point, which is my shallow and dogmatic understanding of frames. Your first point is talking about me saying Steve is -1 so you can jab. And then you went on to show every other situation than the situation that I was talking about. So here are his counterpoints. 1-2-1 down 2, he shows peekaboo, comes up right here, right? Here's peekaboo, it beats the jab. Here's weave left, it beats the jab. Peekaboo 2 beats the jab. The sway options beat a string. He's using a string here. Peekaboo up 1. And the duck options. So as you can see, he did not show flicker stance because my point was correct. So to make himself feel better, he had to use every other stance to try and make my point invalid. But my point still stands. So let me reiterate my point by just playing this clip of the video. So this 10 frame string here that jails isn't really a big deal because if Steve goes into flicker stance, which he does here, Jin can easily jab him out of this. Out of Steve's 1-2-3 back, we can just jab him out of the next option since Steve is -1 going into stance. In this next half of the video, he shows Nina and Anna to illustrate a point that jabbing through this string potentially lead to you getting counter hit or flipped over. So just like you said in this video, the context does matter. Frames in isolation are not everything, and I never said it was. But you're also using a completely different character. Nina and Steve play differently, and you're trying to apply my point to something that I wasn't even talking about. So you're kind of curating yourself to look better here. But again, like you said, look at the context. Would you really be jabbing against Nina from that string specifically? This next little mini section of the video is pretty much just him harping and baby raging because I misspoke about one of Steve's inputs. That one was my bad, and I don't think we need to spend time listening to him baby rage. This next section of the video I think is also pretty silly, but you're talking about Steve going into stance and that Jin has the ability to use dick jab and get out of most of these situations. But what happens immediately afterwards is you show what happens when Steve is able to get over the dick jab. So here are some examples right here. So your point is pretty useless in this case. Also notice that Novaseiken's trying to backdash out of ring 0. This makes no sense, and all it does is make you guess even more.
Thanks for proving my point, big brain.
Okay, so I just had to let that one play out, because he gets really excited that I confirm his belief that you cannot backdash away from Steve in this situation. But this doesn't go just for Steve, this goes for a lot of characters in this game. There are so many characters that have built-in step, built-in range, and you just have to kind of deal with it. This is Tekken 8. You're not allowed to run away from your problems anymore. You have to study up on the character that you're playing against and learn how to play at range 0. Then he takes a screenshot of my comment, which I still stand on this, because you cannot backdash away. I am confirming this. But then what does he do? He shows you a clip of him playing Tekken Tag 2 and running away from Steve successfully. Congrats, you're stuck in the past. This is not how the game is anymore. So your point doesn't make any sense when you apply it to Tekken 8. And just like I said earlier, in the previous Tekkens, you could run away from your problems, as you show right here. But this is not the case anymore. Learn to play the game. Then the next point is him showing another old Tekken. Then he shows Tekken 5 to illustrate his point. Nova, we are in 2025. This does not apply to Tekken 8. I am so sorry that you're able to run away from all the pressure that you could in the older games. This is not the case anymore. I think it's really funny that he's showing this old gameplay because it doesn't apply to the game that we're playing right now. And if you watch this video, you can see that he fails to show any example of this happening in Tekken 8 because it's not possible. So let's read this together. Contrary to what this clown wants you to believe, disengaging from Steve through backdashing is your most desirable option. Yes, in Tekken Tag 2. Congratulations. So yes, backdashing against Steve makes no sense. Now on to this next point. He's talking about when Jin is -1 that you cannot mash. And yes, this is still the case. He shows some other very cherry-picked examples of what happens when you use an evasion attack or something similar to get a high to whiff. Unfortunately, this isn't going to be the case all the time. He's mentioning when I said you shouldn't mash at -1. So you really shouldn't mash at -1, but he's showing you examples of him using down 4 and then evading the jab. But here's one sneaky thing you probably didn't notice. is that he purposely set this example up to only have Steve use highs, just to illustrate his point. But what he's forgetting is that the fundamental options here are jab and mid check. So I recreated all of these examples and just have Steve mid checking instead of jabbing. And you'll see that every single option loses except for dick jab, which you can whiff punish. So here are all the examples that Novaseiken was giving in his original video. I'm showing you that Steve is using a fundamental range 0 option, which is his down forward 1, and it wins every single time. So now let's get into the forgery part of this video. In this example, Steve is using flicker 1-1 up 1, and then Jin is responding with his magic 4. But as you can see, it gets interrupted by Steve's jab string. But in my example, I was able to interrupt him, but this was a mechanical mistake on my part, so I'll admit that. And this most likely comes from the fact that my character does have an 11 frame magic 4, and I can interrupt Steve in this string that he's showing. So for the next topic, he points out that sidestep on a flash punch without holding back is going to get you hit. And this is what I said because this is what actually happens. But you'll notice when he actually puts this into play, he does something, again, very sneaky to try and get his point across. Watch this. He blocks Reina's forward 4, he does the sidestep to the left, and then he quickly punishes this before it clips him. Here's what it looks like if you don't punish her right away. You get hit, which proves my original point, you want to hold back after you do a sidestep. This is just basic sidestep fundamentals. Then he shows him side walking the string, which is what you're actually supposed to do, and of course it'll work here. Now here's where things really get unhinged. So I'm gonna let this video play for a second, right? But I don't see a back input here. He's holding back in neutral, he steps, and then he gets hit, right? So we can even look at this next example. So we can see in both cases, he steps down, no back input. You're gonna get hit by strings no matter what.
Even if you went for sidestep block, you would still get hit blockhead, for the sole reason that Steve Flicker 1 is extremely fast, and the only way you could possibly block it is if you abruptly stopped your sidestep to block without generating any significant lateral movement for any sidestep attempt to be able to make any difference whatsoever.
Novaseiken is horribly wrong here. Let me show you what's actually going to happen if you do a quick sidestep block in this situation. I have Steve to randomly do flicker 1-1 up 1 and randomly do a flicker 1 jab. As you can see, I'm very cleanly sidestepping both of these with no problem. Of course, he tracks me by the end of it, but I still have a window to punish in the meantime. Your execution must be pretty bad with sidestepping if you can't recreate this. So while your argument is saying that it's not creating any significant evasion, I'm clearly showing you that that's not the case. And there are no mechanical mistakes being made here, just sidestepping. And just a side note to this section, you want to step to the left, not to the right. This is why you're having so much trouble with this. Again, this is not Steve's fault, this is your fault. I recommend that you open up practice mode again and try this drill actually stepping in the right direction this time. This next topic, a false assumption, is really where you start to see Nova's unhinged side come out. I'm making a sound argument and he's just starting to throw what-ifs into the picture. What-ifs can happen anytime because this is Tekken and anything can happen. I'm not saying that Steve is restricted to using only 1-2-1. Of course he can walk up to you and use toe stomp. Of course he can set up plus frames and put you in a 50-50. That's how the game plays. And if we were to really break this down, it's really your fault for walking up to your opponent, using an empty down 3, and then expecting something good to happen from this. It's not. You set this up yourself. So if your opponent walks up and toe stomps you, you force this onto yourself by going into a -3 down 3. Now you could finish the string and potentially get them to get interrupted on an approach, but you didn't. You just used down 3 on its own. And just to make this as clear as possible, when you're in this situation, really on paper, your only choices are to block, do a sidestep block, parry or power crush. That's it. But then you made this ridiculous point that Steve is safe on wHiFf as a character. This is what makes channels like this so dangerous, because they only focus on the negatives and they don't actually show you how to play the game. Here's this video of you saying it and the video about fighting GM.
Number 1. The first reason you must not Jin parry against Steve is the most glaring and obvious one. Steve is a safe on wHiFf character.
Nova, you of all people who claims to be a Jin specialist should know that there are moves that you can punish with his parry. Here are multiple examples of Jin punishing Steve on wHiFf. This is another great representation of why Nova only focuses on the negative and does not contribute to the Tekken community. Just like I'm able to admit when I'm wrong, you should be able to put your ego to the side for a second and admit that you were incorrect with this information. In the next topic, Novaseiken pretty much just whines that he can't run away from his opponents and that he has to play active defense, which is a word that he hates. But sorry, you have to learn how to play the game. I'm not going to spend too much time on this section because he's really just coping and whining. So please learn your matchups. It's not Tekken Tag 2 anymore. You do have to defend and think while you're playing the game. Nova's next point is talking about me talking about Steve's back 1. So Steve's back 1 is minus 14 on block, but most Steves will cancel into stance, making it safe. So I'm not technically wrong, but most Steve players would cancel into the stance. So I can see where he got frustrated by this point. The next point of proof of ignorance number 1 is him talking about how I'm talking about his usage of down 2. So he really is a reactive player. He likes to just press. Down 2 is not the solution to everything. You will not find success every single time you press down 2. In fact, it's probably better to just block, but you have an issue with that. You love to mash, so you're gonna find troubles. There's a reason you don't have any videos playing in God of Destruction, because you can't hang. No one at God of Destruction is playing like you are, for a reason. You need to improve, and you don't really understand that until you do. You only see him hiding his username and playing in the blue ranks. So instead of digging deep and learning to improve to be a better player, he'd rather cope and cry online. This entire playlist is really just him crying that Tekken 8 doesn't play like the older ones, and he truly just can't improve at the game. So he'll cry about it. So in his next point, proof of ignorance 2, he completely skips past my solutions to his complaint, because of course he is. He's just going to focus only on the negative because that's all he really cares about. He wants to feel like it's impossible. He wants to feel like everything is doomed. I'm showing you in this video, there's nowhere where he shows my solutions because he doesn't really care about them. He wants to feel bad. So for the billionth time, Nova is complaining because he cannot backdash away from his opponent. Oh no, I have to learn how to play Tekken. And then he shows a message of me talking about Magic 4s, and my legacy brain made an assumption that was wrong. So I can take accountability for this, absolutely. I wanted to briefly go over this section, making it moves that do not exist. I misspoke about Steve's 2-1 back, and I called it back 2-1. That was me misspeaking, so I can take accountability for misspeaking there. The next section of this video, you have to learn how to defend, is him crying about me using Asuka's parry. So I think this is really funny, because any Asuka player would know that Steve is mostly jabs, and in order to get the most value out of playing Asuka, you should use them. There is nothing wrong with using parry when your character is based around parrying and defense. But of course, since Novaseiken is always focused on the negative, he'll just think that my opinion is invalidated because of the character that I'm playing. Nova's final point was when I called flicker 2, flicker forward 2. I got that one wrong. I can also take accountability for me getting this move's notation incorrect. So Novaseiken's final point is saying that this game is doomed beyond repair. Of course, another negative perspective of the game, because he truly hates this game that he plays. and I honestly think he hates himself some more. Then he mentions that there's no skill gap bringing unearned achievements to people who start believing they're knowledgeable authorities on the game. Not only that, he's saying unearned achievements. I earned God of Destruction. You are still struggling and drowning in the blue ranks. Please post a ranked match video of you achieving God of Destruction or even close to it. You cannot, because you're too busy coping instead of learning. And then he hilariously discredits me for the character that I'm playing in the game. That is funny. That's a really good one, and I hope people who are watching this know that that's just completely unhinged. And I've already shown all of the students that I helped get to their gold ranks, but I'll show some more here that are recent. You can come to your own conclusions, but I think it's ridiculous to discredit me for the character that I'm playing when I do my job really well and my students are all very happy with the progress that they make. And just as a closing point for this video, if you want to improve at anything, whether it be Tekken or something you're working on in real life, start reflecting on yourself. But if you're like Novaseiken, who just looks at everything as a negative and blames everyone else for his shortcomings, you will not make any progress. The last thing you want to do is be like Novaseiken. He hates the game that he plays, but he still spends time on it. He wants you to hate the game, and he's practically a parasite to Tekken. If you follow Novaseiken or agree with his ideals, you're most likely just like him. You make excuses for your shortcomings, and you don't make any progress in Tekken because you literally can't when you blame everyone else. It's not the characters, it's not the game design, it's not any of the mechanics you think are impossible to overcome. It's you. You really don't want to end up like Novaseiken, who coddles himself because he can't reach the rank that he wants to. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.